Alright guys, what's up? It's your boy Aniki. I'm gonna get right into this because I'm behind schedule on videos. It's been an interesting time period. Alright, so I'm just gonna zero in real quick. Part of the reason why I didn't do my Jujutsu Kaisen video was because I really had a lot of mixed feelings about the Geto reveal. But I'm gonna take this over from the top. We finally get the revelation of Prison Realm and a lot of sacred items, and we get this emphasis, and we kind of already had allusions to this with Sukuna. We get further confirmation that a lot of curse users, when they die, they can become cursed objects. They end up becoming useful ones depending on who they are. I think it might partially have to do with technique, level of curse energy, potency, etc. But the prison realm being made out of a dead monk who was probably a Jujutsu sorcerer just kind of tracks with the rest of the series and the way things have been going so far. What this does do, though, is it kind of foreshadow what happens within the very next chapter in 91. Because during this chapter, during chapter 90, you get the revelation that there's essentially some brain curse user possessing Suguru Geto's body. But following up in 91, where we get the revelation that due to the fact that it's still the same body, the cursed energy is still there. Cursed energy, to a certain degree, is the will and the negative emotions of a person. So ultimately, they're like anger or hostility, but it's also their desires and their ambitions. Uh, the idea that this is still, the traces are still within the body makes sense because that's how the cursed objects are made. They tend to be reflective of what the original user or what the user's body or the sorcerer was doing at a time, which is why when Yuji turns into Sukuna, he can access his domain and, slice people into 10 pieces or however many pieces he so chooses on that day. All of that is directly tied to the fact that he's got part of Sukuna's body, so he's got access to part of Sukuna's techniques. And over time, Gojo directly stated that he'd inherit those abilities from him just by consuming more of the fingers. So the fact that we have Prison Realm working and it's made out of his body just kind of tracks with the rest of the series, as well as Geto being able to still have some say in what his body does and seeming to fight against the idea of being used by a curse. I think it's important to note that before, a lot of people said that Geto wouldn't have made sense to have decided to start working with curses because of the fact that he wanted a world without curses and he didn't want to have to protect non-curse users, also because of the fact that they create curses. So it's faster to get rid of non-curse users than it is to kill all curses and it's faster to do that. In addition to that, than it is to teach them all Jujutsu sorcery. So what you kind of have here is that Geto's was always at odds with what we were seeing him do on screen from our perception. A lot of people internalized Geto as potentially just setting up and using the curses as pawns, because at the end of the day, his ability was curse manipulation. So the idea that he maybe couldn't tame these stronger curses yet was kind of the angle that I think a lot of us were tackling it from, where he's a special grade user. He's just got to get stronger and stronger, and eventually, when they're weaker, he'd probably be able to finish them off, exercise them, consume them, and then he'd be able to tame their spirits that way. I think that's how a lot of us thought this was going. So Geto, that's not the plot. It's that there's an actual curse possessing his brain, making him do things, yes. But the Geto we thought would come into play, potentially do something like that, actually is on the table. So now we have the potential for not only Geto to take center stage and still be the villain that we thought we were getting out of him, but we also have this other character that can come into play, that is coming into play and has been doing a lot of the things that we thought were the ideas of the original Geto this whole time. So we kind of get to play around with. We don't know how much influence Geto has, because the reality is that the curse user who's possessed his body didn't even know that Geto could have activity or residuals and be able to have an influence on what was going on currently. So the idea that maybe Geto's been able to subconsciously influence him throughout these times and decision makings could impact where we go from there. We could even get something as interesting as Mahito, just for shits and giggles, separating the Geto soul from the Geto body, seeing if the curse would still be able to benefit from it, or if that's even possible. Because that was a big discussion where Mahito says the soul comes before the body, but then the body seems to behave as if it still has a soul, even without the brain. And he had to explain that, without the body, if the body didn't contain the soul, then how would he get access to these memories and all these other facets to how their abilities work. And Mahito, obviously, he just kind of writes it off as well, because we function We have different abilities. The rules for us are just entirely different, and we don't have to worry about that. So there's a lot that can be said into, like what is the full hard line rules with the soul, but I think the fact that it's all mercurial is the author acknowledging the dubiousness to the way the soul is perceived, not only through media, but like in different religions and different ideologies, where because of the fact that Mahito is a curse based on the fear of humans and these different interactions, these different ideologies coming to a head, where the way that even though this character can interact with the soul, he doesn't truly understand what it means to like the soul still to its fullest details. And I think that's important so that we can know that later down the road, when different things start happening, or perhaps if we see a conflict where it turns out that another person capable of containing Sukuna comes into play, and maybe that person happens to eat like 5 or 6 fingers, or maybe the Ghetto that we have, who's possessed by a curse, decides to eat some fingers to see if he's still a high enough power level to manipulate that bit of Sukuna, and then we could see the potential of a lower grade or a Sukuna manifest come from this Ghetto who has the curse manipulation ability, even though Yuji is supposed to be the one who's controlling and manipulating curses in such a way, or specifically compatible with Sukuna in this way. I'm not saying that's definitely what's going to happen. I'm just saying that that's something that we have the potential for in the cards, due to the fact that the based on the powers, the mercurial aspect of how, for all we know, Mahito may be able to do some customization with Suguru to really get this off the ground. But regardless, I just wanted to kind of float that possibility out there. The idea that Satoru is going to be sealed for a while is something that we've been waiting for. And the thing that I took away from this, though, is that the Six Eyes power, I think, is finally being like symbolized a bit more, brought into play. But it's important to note that the prison realm, when it got heavy in his hand and dropped it, it turned into a die. It didn't just become like, those eyes were not arbitrary. They are each counting a different size. It was 1, 2, and then I think one of them had like 6 eyes on it, or 5 eyes. So the idea that the eyes are appearing all throughout, and it seems like he's activated the Limitless within the prison now, and he's keeping himself safe from all the corpses or whatever that's around him, and he's just relaxing it, just focusing on using his soul's energy, the Juraku, to make it a dense object and keep it from going anywhere, so that they have no choice but to stand there and wait for his allies to get there before, if they want to be able to leave and actually keep Satoru sealed, or they have to deal with his allies coming in. And then finally we get to reveal that Mekamaru planned on dying after Mahito fixed him, and accepted that that's probably what was going to happen, and he planned contingencies. So that was, the real him at the end of chapter 90, contacting Yuji. But then he explains that he is actually dead, so we don't have to worry about any, weird plot stuff like that, where it's like, oh, there's no stakes. No, we get confirmation like that, yes, Mekamaru is dead for sure, while simultaneously knowing that he's coordinating and helped influence which teams got picked, it seems, and allowed him to coordinate with Mei Mei, who, while she seems to be invested in getting money out of him, making sure that his counts aren't frozen already, she is still going to work with Yuji and try to enable him, because they are getting attacked by curse users as we speak. Sorry about that. And I think it's important to note that just because Mei Mei makes it sound like she's all about the money, it doesn't mean that that's like all she is. But I think it's important that she have that distinction, and I think it's important to note that the brother is obviously like, yeah, I'll just work with my sister. He's been like her biggest fan, cheering her on every step of the way. But the reality is that Mekamaru focusing on our scouting abilities and their ability to link up and go through these multiple curses that they're going to have to eventually break down, it's kind of important. And the fact that curse users that are humans don't have as good barrier skills, it seems, as the curses themselves, I think is an interesting play, because it's effectively curses are made more or less of just cursed energy, so they are masses of it, so they have more time. Their very existence is figuring out how cursed energy works, whereas curse users have like these human bodies to work with, and I think that's part of where that idea is like stemming from, or where it's coming from. Overall, we're starting to shape up for one of the like a really good plot trajectory. I'm actually really glad I just did these two together, though, because for the possibilities that are here, it's still a lot of, we don't have enough precedent within the series for me to give you like rational, hard grounded speculations, but I do think that we're set up to have One, to see new limits out of the students, out of the kids. I saw people mentioning the potential like domain usage. I don't know if Yuji's ever going to get his own domain or not. That could be fascinating. I'm looking forward to seeing the completed Chimeric Garden and possibly Nobara getting a domain, or at least an incomplete one. I think she could, because we've seen her get the Black Flash treatment already. So it depends on where Gage is taking these characters now at this point. But let me know what you guys think about these latest chapters. I've been enjoying them, even if I was a little worried about the way Geto's plotline was going to go. And that's all I really got to say about the latest Jujutsu Kaisen. Aniki out.